Hey guys, I'm here today to show you a video on how to, we want to replace the O-ring up here in our Volvo Penta DPSM outdrive here. So we got a dual prop Volvo Penta. Prior to Volvo, this was actually OMC, and then Volvo bought them out. So it's actually originally was an OMC drive, but what we found was we went in and replaced all the shaft seals as well as the shift seal and the drive shaft seal. And so we basically resealed all of the drive itself. But what we didn't know and didn't do was replace, there's an O-ring up in here, and we went to launch the boat, and we were just checking in the back to see if anything was leaking, and actually there was. We were getting a little drip on the inside of the boat where the tiller arm for the steering, which is connected to the gimbal ring here, where it enters the boat here, there's a hole in here, and right up in here there's an O-ring we believe is the culprit. So we're getting a little bit of a drip in the boat, not a lot like it would sink the boat immediately or anything like that, but it was a slow drip leak. So what we want to do is we're going to remove this cap right here, and there's a seal for the top right here for the cavity, and then there's a special puller we're going to use to get the steering tiller arm off, and then we can drop the gimbal ring, and we'll be able to hopefully get to this O-ring up here. So there's a few steps before then we're going to do. Obviously we're going to be pulling the drive. Lots of videos out there on how to pull the drive, but we're going to go ahead and shoot that part too. And then also on the bottom side here, we're going to show you there's another bracket here that has the lower kingpin for the gimbal bearing. So basically the steps are going to be, we're going to get inside the boat, we'll show you how to disconnect the tiller arm from the power steering actuator, we'll show you where we found the leak, and then once we're done with that, we're going to come back outside the boat here, pull the drive. Once the drive's off, we'll pull this lower bracket, and then we'll work on getting this apart. So let's turn the camera inside the boat, and we'll show you what we got inside there. Okay, so now inside the boat here, this is back, there's the transom right over here, of course, and then if you look right at the top here where my finger is, this is the tiller arm that comes in through the boat. So there's a hole right here, and the tiller arm is right here attached to the top of the gimbal ring outside. And what I noticed was when we put it in the water last time, I was getting, if you look, this little surface right here below the tiller arm, we were getting a little drizzle of water. Not a lot, but nevertheless some drips. So what we're going to do to disconnect this arm, the tiller arm here, before we do anything outside, if you look, let's see, right back here, there's a pin right here that goes to the power steering actuator here. It goes from here, it goes to the bottom, and then underneath here, it's kind of hard to see, but where the tiller arm is, hard to get a good view here, right about, you go right where my finger is, underneath here, there's a cotter pin. We have to pull the cotter pin out. Once we pull that out, then we can take this pin right here and pull it out, and then that'll free up the tiller arm. So I'm going to do that. I'm not going to be able to hold the phone and do it at the same time. So once I get the cotter pin out, I'll show you what this pin looks like when we get it out. Okay, so here's the cotter pin right here that I pulled out, and that came out from the bottom of that pin right there. So now this pin right here, you can go from the bottom and just kind of push it up. You can see it popped up there. Now I can grab it. There's the pin. Okay. Yeah, so there's the pin. You can see where the cotter pin went through the center there. So now the tiller arm down there is freed up. So now we're going to get back outside the boat, and we'll remove the outdrive, and we'll see if we can get the tiller arm off and get to the O-ring. Okay, and we're back down here behind the boat again. So we're going to be pulling the drive off the boat here, and what I wanted to show you first is I was very reluctant to do this, but I'm doing this solo, and I need the help to have a hoist to lift the drive off. So we're going to use a cherry picker here with a 1/2 inch -13 thread eye bolt, which the owner's manual does, or service manual does recommend putting it in the, removing the dipstick here, and then you take this eye bolt, and then you're going to put that eye bolt in here, and then we'll be able to lift the drive once we get everything disconnected. So what I also did, this is aluminum, all the casing's aluminum, so we got to be very careful to make sure that you do not strip those threads, and that's the big worry about doing this, but it's the best method I had, so we're going to give it a try. We actually did do this the last time we had the drive all pulled apart for the shaft seals, and it seemed to work good. We were just trying to be extra careful. The other thing I did too was, you'll notice this piece of tape here, so when you take the dipstick out up here, underneath here you actually have your upper gear set here. The last thing you want to do is run this bolt into your upper gear set. So what I did was I took a measurement for the depth where the gear set is, and then I have plenty of clearance to where I put a jam nut on here, and then I put some tape in so I know exactly how far up I can go with the jam nut. And I'm not going to over tighten this, but I want to make sure I just get it a little bit snug so that this never goes down into this hole here and hit the upper gear set. So what I'm going to do first is I'm actually going to go ahead and hook the hoist up to this, and then that way it'll kind of stabilize the drive, because now that we have the steering arm disconnected inside, the drive is loose just to flop around like this. So the first thing I'm going to do is get it stabilized. So now that we got our dipstick out here, just got a carabiner sitting up here, I'm going to go ahead and be very careful, thread this 1/2 inch eye bolt in. I've got a little bit of room here, and I'm going to take this, and I just want to get it a little bit snug because I don't want this thing turning around and running into my gear or anything like that. Okay, so now we can kind of straighten our drive out. I'm going to bring the hoist in here. And let's see. And let's get that straightened on there. We had to go the other way last time. Yeah, we're like that. Okay, here we go. Just going to get a little pressure on here. Talk about close clearance. We got about a 1/2 inch there. That's all right. All right. So now once we got a little bit of pressure on there, next thing I'm going to do, I want to get the trim cylinders released. Now, one thing I found last couple times we had this apart, this main pin right here that runs right through the gimbal ring is totally seized. We can't get it off. So what we ended up doing is we took this pin right here and drove it completely out, and then the port side trim cylinder, we just pulled it off the side here. So we basically take the clips off, pull this pin out, and then that'll allow us to move this apart. We'll be able to get the drive off. I'm going to pop these snap rings off here, one on each one. Okay, get those off. We get a nice tray to save all these fasteners. You don't want to lose anything. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to very gently pry the port side cylinder off. Sorry, you probably can't see this on this side, but see, this pin right here it's totally seized. It's actually not seized in the gimbal ring. I misspoke. It's actually froze into the trim ram. So all we can do is just kind of pull this back. So we can get this side off. Just going to let that hang there, and then this side right here, we've got this this pin right here. Yeah, we could probably give it a few taps here. pin all the way in. I can actually slide this right out. So this is just kind of there. That'll be all right though. We can't take, there's no way I can get that unseized, so with this pin right here I can slide this right out. So now the next step we need to do is before we take these bolts out, we're going to disconnect the shift cable here. And then also we have to take this cover off to take the shift cable off the shift lever. All right, so to take this cover off right here, it's just a it's like a 3/8. I got a 3/8 socket here. There's one bolt here, and there's two at the top. Take those off. And this cover, it doesn't actually seal all the water out of the back end of the outdrive where the all the shift mechanism is, which is a little bit surprising, but it's the way they did it. So what I do, take this cover off here. I always, when I put this cover back together, or before I put the cover on, I put plenty of grease on all of the shift mechanism back here, and that's going to make sure I try to keep any corrosion off it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring the camera around here. I'm going to show you. So right in here, you can see right where my finger is at, there's a cotter pin here. This is the shift cable, and then there's a little barrel connector on it. So I'm going to go grab a pair of needle nose. I'll be right back and we'll pull that pin out. Okay, so I got some needle nose pliers. So there's a cotter pin right here. I bought new ones. We're going to replace these. It's really hard to unbend them from the other side there. There's no way to get your wrench in there, so I usually just pull them out. This thing has had better days, so we're just going to put new ones in. Pretty cheap. So down here where this barrel nut is, there's a washer on here, so we'll take this washer off. A washer here, save that. And then the next thing we're going to do is actually, before I pull this off, to get this, pull this out, I'm going to disconnect the shift cable from the drive, and what that's going to do, it's going to allow me to pull this out, and it'll give me some room to take the barrel nut off. So what I want to do is show you right in here. So there's a 3/8 screw right in here. This is a little clip, basically a clip bracket here, fits into a slot into the shift cable, and then there's just one little bolt here, a 3/8 drive bolt, or a 3/8 head bolt. So now that we got this little screw out here, your bracket is going to pop out here, and then now this is going to allow the shift cable in here. You can pull it this way, and voila. Okay. So now that I got the shift cable out, need to get the barrel nut off. And something that I recommend is when you're going to pull this barrel nut off, sometimes it can be a little corroded. We did put some grease on it last time, so hopefully it comes off pretty easily. But what I want to do is count the number of turns, so that when I go to put this back together, I get it exactly the same adjustment that it was before. So I'm just going to count these. I already did this just last week, so I already know this is, mine's on here 22 turns. So once we go 22 turns. Now if you're counting, I'm trusting my notes from last week when I had this apart then. All right, here we go. So then we're just going to kind of push that back in. Make sure we save those parts. All right, cool. So now that we got all that apart, the next thing we got to do is just take out, we got 6 5/8 nuts here on the outside of the casing here. And what we're going to do is we got to take all 6 of those off. and then we'll be able to just slide the drive back. So the only way you can get to these, I find, is with the is a universal joint and a ratchet, and then okay, so I get them started here, and then what I'm going to do. Get them all loosened up a little bit. A little more snug. Oh, there we go. It's already in the 90 degrees down here in Tampa today, and it's not even 11 in the morning yet. So once I get them started to come off, I like to use this driver. It just speeds up the job. Definitely wouldn't use this for torquing them on, but when you're just removing it, help speed up the process a little bit. Don't think it's slowed down my sweating at all, but yeah, we got one more here. Now, last time we had the drive off, we did an alignment on the engine to make sure everything was nicely lined up, and it was. So the drive should come off fairly easily. Anyway, so right now we've got all the bolts off. We've got the shift cable off. We disconnected the shift cable at the front here, so we should be able to just slide it back. There we go. Looks like our hoist is trying to kind of knock over the cameraman, the virtual cameraman. Okay, so we're going to get this drive out of the way and we'll be right back. Okay, so now we got the drive pulled way back here. Give us some room to work. Be careful that this shift cable is not poking in the eye when you get up close to the drive there. I almost had that happen before. So basically what we're going to do, we got to take this bracket on the bottom here. I'm going to set the camera here so you can watch me pull this bracket off. So there's a bracket right here with 3 bolts, and there's a drive kingpin that goes right in here into the lower part of the gimbal ring for steering, and then there's actually another locating pin which is up behind here, which you really don't have to worry about until you go to reinstall it. But basically all we have to do right now to get this lower bracket off, we got a 1/2 inch socket, and we're just gonna take these 3 bolts off, and we should be able to get the drop this bracket. One thing you want to keep in mind too, every part of these drives are connected with grounding straps to help reduce type of electrolysis, which will lead to bad corrosion. So there's a grounding strap on this screw here, or bolt rather, and then there's another one on this one. So you're going to put this back together. You're going to make sure you get your grounding straps installed the same way to help protect this very expensive piece of equipment. Okay, one more bolt here. We might have to give a little bit of pry on this. We'll see. no, wow. There we go. Okay, so this is our bracket right here. So this goes into the bottom of the gimbal ring for steering, and then notice on the bottom here we've got 1, 2, 3 shims. So I want to make sure I keep those exactly the same when it goes back together. So set that aside. And then also this is our upper swivel here. There should be another, yeah, I can see. So inside here, there's one more shim in here. So what I'm going to do, I'll get a screwdriver now. I'm going to pull that out, but I want to remember exactly how many shims you have on top and bottom, whatever they are, replace them exactly the same way. That way it's going to keep all your spacing the same, which could affect you know, the tightness of your steering for the gimbal here, as well as you got a seal up in here, so everything is adjusted just right. So okay, so the top bolts here, we're going to take these 4 off. These are we had a 9/16. Yeah, I think I might have said a 1/2 inch. The lower bracket bolts down here were actually a 9/16, and our upper bolts right here, these are a 1/2 inch. And these should come off pretty easily. I get them all loosened up. Looks like they are at just a slight angle this way, so you're not hitting your boat as you're trying to loosen it up. It's a good design, I guess. Okay, let's get this last one out of here. So we got these 4 bolts out. Now, tray, so this cover here should, yeah, this cover just comes right off. You can see the bottom side here. This is the sealing surface for the top of this cavity. And then I'm going to show you, I'll move the camera so I can show you up on top here what this looks like. So right on top here, we have this is the upper seal right here. So this seals any water from coming out into getting into this cavity here. And then on the bottom side here, there's going to be an O-ring. So the first thing I want to do, I need to remove, we've got these 4 nuts on top here. So there's studs that come up from the, basically the gimbal ring. So these studs are in the gimbal ring. They go up through the tiller arm. There's 4 nuts that come on here, go on here. And then there's 1 bolt in the center. And this bolt in the center typically is, I think the torque on it is about 70 foot-pounds. So it's going to take a little bit of force to get that off. So I'm going to back up right here, the camera, and these nuts, upper cover bolts and these upper steering arm nuts are the same size, all a 1/2 inch. Take these off. We got 1 more. Once you get these nuts off right here, there's a little donut on here, a donut plate. So the nuts go over that. Now, so we got 1 bolt on the top here, which I'm going to get a breaker bar, or actually a large torque wrench, because it's on there quite tight. And I got to go in the shop. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back. All right, so got a nice long arm torque wrench here. So we're going to. All right, got that loosened up. Pretty tight clearance here, about 1/8 of an inch so it hits the boat. Okay, so now here's the bolt that goes in the top center there. Looks like it's definitely a hardened bolt. It's a lot of torque that's on there. So the only thing holding this on now is the tiller arm is still pressed onto the top of the gimbal ring. Okay, so and it's really pressed on there from what I understand. So what we did was I bought a special tool. I'm going to show you the top here. So these studs are actually into the gimbal ring, permanent, okay? And then the tiller arm here drops on top of it, which I believe, so what they did was they put a threaded hole in the top of the tiller arm, and the reason for that is they make this tool that I bought off of eBay for a couple $100 new. I bought this one off of eBay, I think it was about 26 bucks. It's pretty cool. It's just a puck, steel puck with a couple dowel pins. Dowel pins drop in here, and the idea is you put a bolt in here, and then when you tighten the bolt down, what it's going to do is it's going to basically press the gimbal ring away from the tiller arm, so the tiller arm should come up. So it uses the thread in this hole right here is a 916-18, which is actually a fine thread, and I couldn't find any in the store, but I did find this from the auto parts store. They make a 916-18 thread. This is a wheel stud, and then I got a nut to fit it. So we're going to see if we can get this to work. I'm just going to spin this up, and we're going to get this down and get it relatively tight here. And then what I want to do is take a wrench and torque on this, and this should drive this up. Yeah, believe it or not, this baby's moving. I'll tell you, I can really see because the studs here, they're just about all the way through the tiller there, so this is good. I thought we may have to heat it up because I know a little history on this boat. I've only had it for about 6 months, but I don't think any of this has ever been apart before, so you just never know. And actually, that tool is pretty amazing. I'm pretty impressed. All right, that tiller arm looks like she's pretty loose now. So, all right, so we can get this back out now. Yeah, so we're going to take this off. There we go. And now the tiller arm. Since the studs are on here, we can't lift up the tiller arm, so the only option is going to be to bring down the bring the gimbal ring down. The thing I don't know is if I'm going to be able to lower this enough to get to this O-ring and get the tiller arm off without removing the bellows. And if we have to remove the bellows, we will. But let's see what we got here. It would have been nice to get this thing completely out of here. There's our O-ring right here, and that looks pretty, it's a little ugly. Okay, so we were able to get this low enough. I think the bellows stretched a little bit, but I think we're okay. Okay, and we were able to get the new O-ring on here, and we cleaned up both surfaces with a little bit of emery before we put the O-ring on, and we got this O-ring back on. And I didn't want to leave these bellows pushed down for too long with the pressure to get this. To be honest with you, I would recommend taking the bellows off before doing this, because it pulls on them quite a bit. These are brand new. I just replaced them a month ago, 2 months ago, so I think they're okay. We're going to inspect them and everything before we put it back together. But basically, we get this O-ring on right here, put some nice grease around here, and then before we bring it back up, I want to make sure I get the tiller arm, which I'm going to need another set of hands probably. Let me see if I get a tool. I'm going to try to pull that up over here. I'll show you how to get the tiller arm back over to here, and then we can raise the gimbal ring back up. 1 minute. Okay, so we actually had to go back inside the boat, push the tiller arm out this way a little bit. We got it just about over here. So what I'm going to do is just put a little bit of downward pressure on this, just to give me a little more clearance to pull this back over. And then once we get it over those studs in there, we'll be able to start reassembling. I'm going to need 2 hands, so I'm going to pull this back a little bit. Yeah, it's got a little pick tool here to have some fingers to grab onto this over here. Okay, take that block of wood out of there now. Give you a better view so you can see now as this goes up, the stud should come through here. A little ways to go here. Yeah, what they recommend is make sure before you put any torque on the center bolt here, these need to be at least level. And normally that's for new install, before they get the shims in, to make sure that with the bearing clearances, nothing is getting crushed up in here. So what we're going to do is I want to get these on, but I need just a little more thread. So I'm going to put the center bolt in here and just drive it a little bit so I can get these 4 on. And then we'll torque this one last. And then also, before I get too far with that, I am gonna go back down in here and check right in here. Remember I said there's a shim? And there I don't know if the angle of this camera, you probably can't see it quite here yet. Yeah, but right in here, right in here there's a shim. Okay, and there was only one up here, so I want to make sure when I start bringing everything together up that I have the shims in place. You don't want to miss these. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the center bolt in here. Sorry about the camera angle. I'm doing this all with one set of arms here. So anyway, we're going to get our center bolt here. Get this started. Just a little bit too snug to do it by hand, so just to get it snugged up. We'll get the donut on top and the four nuts. We'll get those going, and then we'll do our final torque on. Okay, so we have this little donut here. Can only go on one way, the way they space the holes, which is good. And then with that, we'll get the 4 nuts on top here. And these go down with a half inch socket. And there are, if you look in the service manuals for these, all the torque specs are in there. These ones I believe are 17 foot-pounds, but don't quote me. Look at the book. It's a little bit too long of an extension there. Let's drop this down. Just get them to snug a little bit. We need to over tighten them. Just, I think the book says 17 pounds on these. We're going to guesstimate. The big center bolt, that's the one you really want to. That one gets torqued to 68 to 72, I believe, is spec. So we're going to torque the center bolt right up on top here, total right in the middle. We're going to go right about 70. So let's get our torque wrench set here to 70 foot-pounds. Set on. And just test it again here. Okay, very good. All right, so we're going to take a quick break here. We're going to grab a little water. I want to inspect my bellows to make sure when we compressed it, it didn't do anything to them. And then we'll come back and we'll... Okay. Took a quick break. We'll grab a glass of water and see if we could cool off here, but not possible. It's just hot and sweltery. Tampa here at this time of year is really, really hot. So yeah, we got our shift cable sticking out a little bit far, but anyway, so as we finished up with this, last we left off, we got everything tightened up here, so that'll be ready for the top cover in a little bit. So next step is a couple things I did. Obviously we put grease in the O-ring here before the drive gets back, put back in here, the edge of the bellows here where the outdrive is going to seat and seal against the surface of the bellows right here. I put a nice coat of the green grease in here. As well as I put a little bit around the water intake seal right here. Helps hold it in place, and a little bit of grease is always good to keep your gaskets from drying out. So next step is we're going to put the this lower, I guess it's a lower bracket that has the pin on it. There's also, so the 3 bolts go here, here, and here. Actually, I'd like to put a little grease on that one too. Get a little bit of grease on this one here. I'll put it on the actual pin too. So I'm going to do this. The camera angle is going to be a little bit difficult to see. You see me take the bracket off earlier. It's going to go back on exactly the same way. Just a couple things to mention. I want to make sure I have all my shims are put back on the same way that I took them off, so we got the same spacing. And then also these ground straps right here, we want to make sure that you got one that goes in this bolt and one that goes in this bolt. So when we go to put the bolts in, we're going to want to make sure that we get our grounding, there it goes, all the way up. Good. So we didn't have to tap anything. We're going to get the first front bolt loaded that doesn't have the ground straps. That way it'll make it easier to put the other bolts in with the ground straps. We got to switch out our socket. This lower one's a 9/16. Let's get our ground strap on, starboard side. And we'll come back to the port side. Surprisingly, for the age of this boat, it's a 2001 4 Winds 248 Vista. It only has under 300 hours on it. It was a freshwater boat until I bought it, and it's only seen salt water for about 6 months. First 3 were wet slipped for the bottom paint and everything, which we were testing some other anti-corrosion systems. And since after 3 months, we decided to lift keep it. So this boat's been on a lift. We also added freshwater cooling, so it's pretty well protected. The bottom paint makes things look a little bit ugly over here, but definitely protects it. So if we go on any long stay trips, even though we're not going to keep this thing wet slipped, if it's going to be kept in the water for our travels, it's going to be well protected. So I'm glad I did it. We got the drive and the hull completely barrier coated and the bottom painted, so okay, get these nice and snug. All right, so everything's buttoned up down here. Next thing we're going to do is up here, the arm is completely installed, so we can put the top plate on here. Make sure you get your gasket on the top here. I put a little bit of RTV on the bottom side, keeps it in place. I might just put a real thin film just on the top side. Don't overdo it. They don't even recommend it on the top side from what I understand, but I don't think a little bit can't hurt. A little thin film, okay. And again, the way I'm doing these, all these steps may not be exactly the way you may want to do it or the book recommends, but anyway, that's the way I'm doing it. So I put a little bit of RTV there. I already had some underneath here, and so I'm just going to carefully set this in place. And slight angle. Yeah, they actually go on a little bit of an angle, probably to keep it clear from the boat, I assume. Just the direction when they made the parts. It actually helps because it keeps your wrenches away from the boat. And do a cross pattern on these so we get everything tightened down nice and even. As with any mating surfaces, you want to be torquing them down a little bit at a time, go across from each other. That one just a little snug, and now we can get a little bit more. It's going into aluminum, so last thing you want to do is over torque aluminum. These threads can strip out real easy, so you just want to nice and snug, but don't over torque them. And nice and even. Okay. All right, so we're good there. So that's it for the. We got everything pretty well buttoned up as far as the gimbal ring goes. Steering arm. We're gonna bring the drive in now. I want to make sure I lift this up, so I don't have to try to stretch it around that cavitation plate or take everything apart again. So got everything pretty well greased too. So we're going to pull the camera back so we can get a little better view of how we ring the drive up. And okay, so I had quite a bit of grease on this, but you know what? I'm going to put a little bit more on here. So hopefully after this repair job here, we're hoping to keep it in the water a decent amount of time before having to do this all over again. Make sure you use the good recommended green grease that Volvo asks you to use. Okay, so when we start bringing the drive in closer here, of course this is going to go inside here, but we also want to make sure that we get the shift cable here into the right hole, which is you got your bolt hole, and then the next hole up, round one, is for the shift. So as we load this in, bring that. And now, as I bring this in, I want to make sure I peek in here and load the shaft into the gimbal bearing. Try to keep everything nice and aligned as we go in. And we can pop it in gear if we want to use the blades of the propeller to turn the drive shaft and get our splines lined up inside the boat. There we go. Just easy does it. A little bit of wiggle, a little bit of turn. Never force it. Last thing you want is your splines to get damaged on the way in. So all we got to do next. Whoop. What did I say in the beginning? Don't forget to put this on top. So I'm going to take a break. I'm going to pull this back off, get that trim cylinder on top. I'll show you how to button it up. Okay, we're back to where we left off, except we got this guy up on top here. Didn't think I'd make that mistake twice, but I did. Oh well. We lost 5 minutes. Not a big deal. So we're going to get these nuts started here by hand. They're in these little pockets. Use your fingertips to get them started. Takes a little bit, but okay, so we got all the nuts started. What we're going to do is just, I'm going to use my power driver here. I don't want to tighten this all the way up. I just want to get it, even still a little bit of a gap here, because I'm not going to do any torquing with this. I want to do all my torquing with my hand ratchet rather. The drive's pretty even, so I can, with that gap, I'm not going to let it go any closer until I get my, get all 6 of these just touching. And then what we'll do is come back with the hand ratchet, and we can do a final torque on them. Okay, so the last one here. What we want to do now, no more power driver. We're going to take the take my hand ratchet here, and we'll get them contacted. The order they tell you to do it is go the middle ones from side to side, then go upper side to side, then the lower side to side. So what we do is just, I get this, so my gap here is, I get it just touching. Kind of watch both sides to make sure both sides are going in. You definitely don't want it to go in hitting one side and not the other side being like really close to be there. So I just kind of go back and forth till I can see I got full contact. Then I'm going to go to the upper ones, get those snugged up. And I'll go to the lower ones after that. I'm going to run across here to the opposite side. Okay. Once I get these snugged, I'm going to go back to the center ones, give them a good torque in the same sequence. Okay. Cross. Okay, these two hands, this U-joint may want to do a little twist on you. Strip the nut or something. Just try to keep it straight as possible. Too hard to use. Okay. One more. Okay, that's that. Now that that's done, what we're going to do is we're going to get the trim cylinder rams on here. So again with this, I'm going to put, it's been greased multiple times, but I'm going to grease it again. I'm going to use my grease gun here just to get some dabs started. Nice and greased. What I want to do, I'm going to send it through this side first. Push it a little bit further through, and that way the trim cylinder on the other side, I'm going to slide it on the forward pin, get it lined up there first. And then I get this one started a little bit. Move the camera probably so you can see it better. One other thing, you can see the, ouch, you can see the drive. I'll push this ram in a little bit here, so see if I can slowly raise the drive. There we go. Okay. And we just tap them until we get them seated. That was the seized one, so I got to tap that one home first. This one here, I'm going to put the snap ring on. Yeah. Just get this on. And then I can tap this side till it just touches. And then I know I should have enough room to get the snap rings on the other side. Okay, so now I can tap this one home. Oopsie. Towel out of the way. I put these snap rings on. And there's actually two grooves. I'm not sure. Oh, I know what the other one's for. There's an inner and an outer. The outer one's for a beauty cap that's on here, which those have been long gone before I owned the boat. Anyway, snap rings go on the innermost groove on both sides here. So, all right, so we're good there. Could use another water break, but let's keep moving. So now what we want to do is, I guess I can remove this. The way I'm going to do that, I want to take some pressure off the hoist here. I'm going to drop this down. I want to get this eye bolt out of here. We can actually put the dipstick back in. We just changed the fluid. Last time we did service on it, which was a couple weeks ago, so we'll check it again, but it should be good. Let's get this hoist out of the way. And we're going to get this eye bolt here. You can see our tiller's still not connected inside the boat. We'll do that last. We'll probably take a break, bring the camera in, we can show you how we get that buttoned up. But all right, so next step, we want to get our shift cable reinstalled. And first thing I want to do is get this barrel, 22 turns, if you remember correctly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 22. And it faces this way to go back into this linkage arm right here. And a couple ways we can do this. What I'm going to do, I want to be able to use this to push back and forth. So I can get this little bracket and the screw in over here. I want to do that first, and then I can just push this in, get the new cotter pin on, and that'll be it for the shift cable. So what you want to do is, I know you can't see it from there, but in the, actually you can see it right here. So this groove right here, on this side right here, this bracket is going to hold that to keep it in place back and forth. Now, when your shift cable pulls out this far, what I found is I don't want it to kink. So keep the drive turned a little bit, and I'm just going to wiggle it. And what I want to do is use my other hand here to just kind of keep guiding it up, because there's a sleeve up in here that it goes through. And I want to make sure it pushes through that sleeve and doesn't. If you just push on this thing, you could kink it, and if you kink it, you ruin the cable. So I always guide it up here with two hands. It's pretty easy to access. Just don't let the drive come this way and pinch your fingers. I'm taking this glove off so that way it'd be easier to put this screw in think. Okay, so we're going to tighten this. We'll probably speed this video up so you don't have to watch me for 5 minutes tightening this little screw. So we'll probably pause and come back when I'm just done with this. Little turns. You could get about 1/8 of a turn each time with this, but it goes on. Snug there. And don't strip it. Okay, now we're going to bring this back. We'll come over on this side. And back over here, you can see the barrel. Now, if you want to get a little more room here, you can go inside the boat and shift the shift lever so that this is out. It'll give you a little more space in here. I'm going to do it this time without doing that, just for sake of time. So all I'm going to do now, after I wipe the sweat off my face, is we got to put a washer on this side of it. So the barrel goes through the shift arm here, and then let's see what we got here. We've got some 16th inch 3/32. I think the 3/32 is going to be a better size pin. Let's see what we got here. Put new cotter pins in. Cheap. And I'm just going to try to grab the end of it. We got a little pole on there so I can bend that clip up, keep it from backing out. Actually, there's two more in here. These I'm going to take up top with me, and I'm going to put new cotter pin in the steering tiller arm when we get up there. So back here, we're pretty well set back here. We've got our shifting is all back together. We do need to put the dipstick in and check the oil. So you've got to put a little grease around your threads in the O-ring here, and then I'm going to grab just a regular screwdriver. What I'm going to do is just bring it down and get the O-ring to just to get it to seat, and I'm going to back it back out and check our fluid, make sure we still are full, as it should be. It's about right there, and it's like brand new. It should be. We haven't used the boat yet since we did the drive service on it. Okay, so we're going to just tighten this back down. This snug. It doesn't have to be super tight. Aluminum to aluminum, you don't want to ruin the threads again. All right, so now all we got to do back here is put the this ugly back cover. I think next time out, I think we're gonna do a little refinishing on this and pretty it up. But, it's well protected anyway with all of the all the bottom paint on it. So what I'm gonna do here, let's get each one of these babies started. Too. Okay, I'm just going to snug these up. Again, this cover right here, it doesn't seal all the way around the outside here. I kind of wonder why they didn't, but I'm sure there's a good reason. So it does let water in, but it keeps the guts protected from, I guess, a lot of other stuff beyond water. So it's nice and snug. Okay, so we're done on the outside here, guys. We're going to take a break, try to cool off a little bit. We're going to get inside and we should drop that pin in, and we'll get the cotter pin back in, and we'll be ready to put it in the water and see if we actually fixed it. We'll be right back. Okay, now we're back inside the boat here. I apologize, I'm sure it's a little bit difficult to see, but back here is our tiller arm. It's pretty much turned all the way steering to the right. So I moved my actuator at the steering wheel pretty close to that, all the way to the right. And then what I want to do is kind of line it up. And I got my, this is the pin here. And notice the hole orientation. I want to just drop that all the way through. I know I had the hole kind of facing that way because dropping this cotter pin in, it's really actually blind. You really can't see underneath here. In fact, I'm probably I should be able to get the pin loaded here. But Yeah, see, I got it through the hull, and what I usually do is I try to turn it. So I'm turning the pin 180 degrees. I guess I could have just loaded the pin from the other side, but sometimes it's hard to get your finger around to push the pin through this way, so I want the pin aimed out this way. And I'm going to go underneath here with a pair of pliers right where my finger's at. I'm going to grab it and I'm going to put a bend in it so that it can't back out. But I don't think I'm going to be able to do that with the camera in the way, so I'm going to turn the camera off, and I'm going to see if I can sneak underneath here, and we'll just do a final recap and be done. Okay, guys. Well, we're pretty much done here. We'll just give you a quick recap on this part of the project right here. So we inside of the boat here, I'm gonna move the camera. So we put the steering pin back into the tiller arm here, and then we left off when we were putting the cotter pin through the underside of this pin here. So we replaced it with the same size pin that it came with, which is about I think it was a 1-inch long 3/32 stainless steel cotter pin. Made it really difficult to bend over the end of the pin underneath here. You couldn't even see it underneath the actuator here. So my recommendation would be replace the cotter pins with ones that are longer, so that you'll be able to see the tip of the cotter pin beyond the actuator over here, and then you'll be able to crimp it over easily. So other than that, the project went very well. I hope this video was very helpful, and I thank you for watching.